power brokers, the wall of power will fall.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is, for the last 14 years, your host, Paul Metza. We have not only a good friend of mine on the show tonight, but a man who helped put the stake in the ground for bringing music to Northeast Minneapolis with bands that didn't have an accordion player back in the late 1990s. He owns a few restaurants we're going to talk about, and he's also included a lot of music at his restaurants. He's a great guy, played football for the Golden Gophers, man about town, cancer survivor, and more. He's got a big show coming up that I'm a part of at Moe's American Grill in Mounds View on August 16th and 17th. On Saturday the 16th, he's going to have the great G.B. Layton with his trio and country music legend Sherwin Linton and his wife Pam on Saturday. On Sunday, it is the 50th anniversary of my band, Cats Under the Stars, and we will be doing a show at Moe's in Mounds View, which is at 2400 Mounds View Boulevard in Mounds View. Outdoor show. The front porch swinging liquor pigs will open, and then the 7-piece Cats Under the Stars electric band will hold forth. And my guest tonight will be hosting the whole affair. He's got stories to tell, and we're happy to have him on the show tonight, Mr. Jeff Moritko. Jeff, how are you doing?
Doing great, Paul. Thanks for the introduction, the kind words. I appreciate it. That's awesome, man. Thank you.
Well, when I first moved into Northeast Minneapolis in '97, I was looking for work, and back then I had a cassette and a little promo pack, and I went 4 blocks from the back door of my house to the legendary Maze Lax Bar, and I believe you were bartending that day, and I handed my stuff to you, and it turns out you and I had some history. But first of all, before we talk about that, tell people out there that don't know about the history of the legendary Maze Lax Bar in Northeast Minneapolis.
Well, I purchased Maze Lax in 1997. I was the 4th owner in 110 years, made famous by Stan Maslach, a wrestler in the 50s, and had a couple different movies, wrestling movies filmed there, as well as Grumpier Old Men scenes were filmed there. And I took over the terrazzo floors and the tin ceilings and the whole bar. But I took over in April of '97. There was only polka on the jukebox, and it just reeked of garlic in there because that's all that Stan had done.
The garlic roast beef, famous garlic roast beef.
The garlic roast beef, man. It hung in the air. So we knew we had some work to do. And then on weekends, he would have blues music and then polkas on Sunday. And, the only thing, if you're not a blues music fan, you're certainly not a bad blues music fan. And that's kind of what we had, and no stage and no PA, and it was a heck of a deal, but I was in the deep end, and getting to meet people like yourself help us take it to a new level.
Well, Jeff, you grew up in Northeast. I believe you graduated from Edison High School, and then you went on to the University of Minnesota, and you had quite a football career.
Yeah, I grew up in Northeast on 4th and Madison. Went to all the local elementary schools and ultimately Edison High School, and I was fortunate enough to be heavily recruited and got a scholarship offer at the University of Minnesota, and ended up being a 3-year starter there and letter winner, and wish we had some better seasons back then, but it was a great experience nonetheless.
I remember when I started hanging out, because I moved into Northeast right down the street from you in '97, and you would have some of your old football buddies and then their friends. I believe there was even some of these guys that might have even had Super Bowl rings that went on to play in the NFL. But when those guys would get together, man, I'd walk in, I felt like I was walking into the land of the giants.
Yeah. That was we'd have those O-line parties and other get-togethers, and many people played in the NFL, and it was fun because I'm 6'3", and biscuit over 300, and they're all bigger and heavier than I was. So yeah, when you'd come in and it was definitely some tall, big humans around.
Now, when you played, what years did you play for the Gophers, Jeff?
1980 through 84.
Now, did any
My
of those
senior
guys?
year was Lou Holtz's first year.
Wow. Now, did any of those guys that you played with go on to the NFL?
Many of them did, yeah. Many of them did. The person, you mentioned the Super Bowl ring, that was Ray Hitchcock. He got a Super Bowl ring with Washington. A buddy of mine I played with, Randy Rasmussen, played 6 years for the Steelers and a couple for the Vikings, and many went to the Rams and in other places. But yeah, a good number of people went to the NFL after college.
So what did you do after college, Jeff?
So I had a couple of opportunities, but I had some bad injuries. I had a back issue, which I have a missing vertebrae in my lower back, and of course, when you get at that level, they find everything.
Yeah.
And so that wouldn't allow me to go play at that level. So I was out, and depressed and kicking around for a while because a lot of these guys I played with, I thought I had some good opportunities, but I went into sales, and then ultimately the bar business back in 1985 and 86 at a place called Green Streets. I started managing there, and then kind of worked my way through the system from there.
Well, it turns out once we got to know each other, and your friendship was so valuable for me, not only in Northeast, but still to this day. And we're working together next week at the big August 16th and 17th shows at Mounds American Grill in Mounds View. Is that you used to bounce at Sammy D's, where Cats Under the Stars kind of got one of their first gigs in Dinkytown.
Yeah, upstairs at Bootlegger, I think it was called Bootlegger Sam's or something.
Yeah,
it was Sammy
Bootlegger Sam's,
lower level. Yeah, and I used to play softball with Gino D'Agostino, who cooked down there at Sammy D's, and ultimately I'd worked a couple times for Sammy D and Mama D, and so John, who ran the upstairs, John D'Agostino, hired me as a bouncer while I was still a senior in high school.
Wow.
And so that was I don't know how long I was bouncing for, a number of months, 6, 8 months or something. And someone must have said something, and he asked Mark Liniani, who was running everything, "Hey, is he, still in high school?" Oh, yeah. Well, we can't have him working, but it gave me introduction to bands like yourself and Doug Maynard and Fat City and some of these bands that were really hot and popular back then in the mid to late 80s.
Yeah, it was a great little club.
Yeah.
Now tell us about because Northeast you had Mama D's. Talk about all that, all those, the Totino's Pizza and all that stuff. Didn't all those things have kind of a Northeast connection?
Yeah, absolutely. Mama D's was kind of southeast, but Totino's was in northeast Minneapolis, and kind of revolved around that. And growing up there, you kind of, all that stuff's around you, which was really cool. It was a great time to be a young, guy growing up in northeast Minneapolis, because there was so much that you could walk to. It was either a grocery store, a bar, or a church, and about every other corner, and so, you could get whatever you needed, and you didn't have to drive very far to get it.
I remember when I moved into Northeast, I would I would call my sister out in Frederick, Maryland. She goes, "What's it like?" I go, "Well, it's you walk around the neighborhood, it's bar, church, bar, church, church, bar."
Yeah.
On every block.
Yeah, they
Now,
they got you coming and going, as they say.
yeah. Now, tell us a little bit about. I had the pleasure of meeting your dad one time. Tell us what your dad did. He was a hardworking guy. I think you picked up a lot of your work ethics from your father.
Yeah, my dad was great. He was a custodian at Edison High School, where I went to school, and I think he worked 44 or 46 years there or something. And hard worker, 2 jobs when we were kids. You know, we didn't have a car until I was in 6th grade.
Wow.
He'd work for the railroad during the day, and then come home and have a break, and then go work for the school board. But yeah, he was. He worked hard and also played hard at times, as most Northeasters did. But what a great influence from that standpoint.
And what was your mother? Was she a housewife or did she work?
She worked a little bit when she was younger, and then kind of, I suppose, when I was more in my teenage years, and definitely after my sister was born, she became a housewife and at home. And yeah, it was great to have her around and home cooked meals, and I miss those nowadays. Trust me.
Oh yeah, we all miss our moms and dads and all that good home cooking. But and we're going to talk a little bit about your new place, the Char House, out in Chanhassen, and Moe's American Grill. But before we get into, I want to talk about how you overcame cancer, and you're a survivor. Thank God. And boy, the last time I saw you, you looked like $1 million. But I know that was touch and go for a while. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit about this, the big weekend out at Moe's American Grill in Mounds View with GB Layton, Sherwin Linton with lovely wife Pam, and of course, the Front Porch Swinging Liquor Bricks and my band Cats Under the Stars. What can people expect at that event, Jeff?
Well, really, really excited to be able to host it. We're doing it in conjunction with the city has what they call their festival in the park. So there'll be activity in the city. We'll have Pam Linton doing songs of the Carter family for a set, which has been really received well around town. And then Sherwin and Pam will play with their band, the Cotton Kings, kind of an afternoon couple of sets. Sherwin's been playing, all the way back to the Mayflax days. And then GB Layton will do a trio set, kind of scaled down, but fun nonetheless. That's a no-cover show on Saturday. Outdoors, we'll have a tent and stuff for the bands, and hopefully the weather cooperates. And then Sunday, we've got obviously the Cats on the Stars 50th anniversary show. It's doesn't quite roll off the tongue like it did at the 25-year anniversary show, but and then warm, and opening up for them is Dave Babb and the Front Porch Swinging Liquor Pigs, and those guys again have been friends and playing since the Mayflax days, and there will be a $10 cover at that event again. So we're really looking forward to that. There's good activity in town, so the people that are buzzing around, and we'll work hard to be good hosts.
Well, you always are. We're going to listen to a little bit of GB Layton and then be back with my guest, Jeff Moritko, all night tonight on the Wall of Power Radio Hour.
I see you tapping your feet to that old jam band beat. You know it ain't like me to dance. This place ain't loud enough. It's time to shake it up. Give this night a little kick in the butt. Come on, this beat is banging. Take my hand, don't leave me hanging. Get up, baby, show me something. Don't you hold back nothing. Wanna see you rocking in the spotlight. Whoa, singing like you got the mic. Get up, stop swinging that long hair. Even if you do, baby, dance like you don't care. Show 'em how it's done. If you wanna get down, get down, get down. You gotta get up. Gotta get up. That's
You are listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. My friend for the and guest for the whole show tonight, Mr. Jeff Moritko, Northeast native, and one of the men who put the stakes in the ground to get the music scene going at Maze Lax Bar, which he bought in '97, the same year I moved into the neighborhood. Jeff, let's talk a little bit about, there was most of the bands in Northeast Minneapolis, with the exception of a few blues bands, always had an accordion. But you kind of put the stake in the ground and started booking other bands. And some of the bands that you booked for the first time, when we were doing our Artist Corner on Tuesday nights, we had Molly Mayer, who did one of her first gigs on that open stage. Also, a young guitarist by the name of Charlie Parr used to drive down from Duluth and play. I think he used to give me $150 and burgers and beers for the musicians. I'd always slide Charlie another $20 or $30 because he'd drive down all the way from Duluth just to play a half hour. And you and I were both really excited about what a future that guy had and what a career he has had. But you were also one of the first places that now a legendary Duluth band, Trampled by Turtles, played. Talk about when you first had the Turtles at one of your spring fests.
Yeah, I mean, we had them. I think they actually came down on one of your Artist Corners a couple of times first, and obviously they were great back then, and they were just building, and then we had them at one of our outdoor events, and they drew very well, and then it was like a bomb exploding, and we never saw them again, right? I mean, but while we had them, it was great then, and I just wish them and a number of people, whether it was Dave Ray and Spider John and all these guys, if we would have had some presence of mind to film and video and audio, all that stuff back then, because there was some great music being played at Maze Lax back then. And
I remember I believe it was my 45th birthday party. I had both Percy Struther and Dave Ray join me back when you had that little stage when you walked right in the door and the stage was to the left.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Those were.
I remember. Remember John Eric Thede used to book the other main room for me back then a little bit, and I was upstairs, and he called me and said, "I got good news and bad news." And I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Well, I found a couple of underage kids in here." I go, "Dang it, let's get them out of it." He goes, "Well, one of them is Johnny Lang." So back when he was still drinking and partying, he'd come in on Thursdays because he liked the band Tessite.
Yeah. Well, talk about Tessite a little bit, because those guys, they held forth for years, didn't they?
Yeah, well, yeah, they got their start on that Artist Corner that you hosted, and then we put them over on the other side, and they could play electric, and then they became my Thursday night house band for, I think almost the entire time I was there after that, 9-10 years. And like yourself, they're still friends to this day, and they were fantastic, and would bring people in, and just really a fun, burgeoning music time back then. It was just the musicians were very friendly to Maze Lax. We tried to take really good care of them, and so they could come and hang out and not be pestered all the time.
Well, the one thing I loved about working with you, Jeff Moritko, was not only the Maze Lax food, was whether it was a burger or the legendary roast beef sandwich, was always incredible, well priced. The drinks were always well priced, always great service, but you really did take care of the musicians. And I've told you, and I've said this for years, if you give a musician 100% of your efforts and love, you will get 150% in return.
Yeah, amen to that. And it's, the music kept on growing. People like yourself invested. All the people of the time back then, and we could list, dozens and dozens of names, and they were all part of starting to grow that scene there in Maze Lax. And the reason I fell in love with it so much is because music, like nothing else, brings people together,
Yeah.
and of all walks of life, and you name it. And that's kind of what we did. And it started on the weekends, and then grew to Thursdays, and grew to artist corners during the week, and we kind of became a music lounge. It just organically grew. And it was so fun because people wanted to play there in big name band, big name people that, we've had a lot of people come through Mayflax over the years when we were playing there because of relationships like yourself and Sue McLean and other folks like that. And so I was very fortunate, very lucky. The timing was good, and we worked hard to treat the musicians well, and likewise they treated us well.
Didn't you have a private party with Jerry Jeff Walker there?
We had Jerry Jeff Walker there. It was crazy. He was fantastic. It was filled it up, 160 people paid. What a great event. He was fantastic. Now there's Sue McLean, then took advantage of that and had him at the zoo or whatever after that. But
Right.
God bless her. But yeah, he played a private show. He was great there. We've had a couple times where Billy Joe from Green Day was in the audience, and up until people started bugging him, then we never saw him again. It really became a okay place for the musicians to kind of hang. On any given night, you might walk in and see some local traveling, touring musicians just hanging out on an off night, which is really special. When you can come in and they can have a drink or a beer just like anybody else, and not have to be hassled at some level. So I was proud of that piece of the puzzle.
Well, I remember the night that Al Cooper, who talked his way into playing on Like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan, that's just celebrated its 60th anniversary, was there one night just hanging out. Somebody called and said, Al Cooper's at Mayflax. I said, I'm on my way. The beautiful thing, Jeff, when I moved into Northeast with our good friend Tony T-Bird, may he rest in peace,
Yes.
it was the first time since before I got my driver's license when my mother used to drive me to play at talent shows and in church basements. It's the first time I was able to walk from my house to the gig and back. And I remember, and I wrote about it in my autobiography, Blue Guitar Highway, for some reason I thought I was going to count the steps from my back door to Mayflax's front door. I think I counted 200 steps on the way there. And on my way home, I got to my 350th step, and I was still a block away from the house.
Yeah, well, that can happen. I don't know how that happened, but that can happen.
Well, let's. So it was always the kind of the beauty of you. Besides being a bar owner, you had the love of music, and and still to this day, you have really good taste in music.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I love it. It's something I've always loved to do, and when you can do it and have people that that are professional in what they do, and have something to say, and like I said, bring people together. That's what it's all about, in my opinion.
So now, how long did you own Mayflax?
Just shy of 11 years. So 97 to, well, about a little past 10 years, 2000, at the end of 2007, so almost 2008 is when we sold out.
So now, when did you, and I'm saying this facetiously, lose the bet and decide to buy a bar on your own? What actually did you? It had to be a huge undertaking.
Well, it was. What had happened is it just kind of fell into my lap, so to speak. I was actually coaching football at Edison High School. I was the head coach there, and my job was salesman. I was covering the 5-state area, and I just was traveling so much. And an old realtor named Frank Walensky called me, and I got a deal. You'll be a natural, and blah blah blah. And Mayflax, and you're Polish, and he was Polish, and blah, you know. So we go look at it, and it looks like it's something I want to do. I talk to the principal. The principal is fine with it, and so I get some friends of mine together to kind of an investor group of about 10 people I knew, along with the money I had put away, and we bought Mayflax from George and Don Marvin.
Wow. And,
Yeah.
you know, we always lovingly refer to Northeast Minneapolis, as we call it Northeast, as the Polish Riviera.
Yes,
And-
yes, exactly.
And then the church right around the corner, I think it was the Russian Orthodox Church. They, I think, still to this day on Thursdays, you can go get your pierogies. And
Yep.
it was really fun for me, Jeff, when I moved in and got to know you and helped. You were kind enough to let me help book some music there. But it was really Northeast. Was really kind of still an undiscovered neighborhood. It was a working class neighborhood. It reminded me of the Iron Range where I grew up. And with people like you, and then our friend Pat Dwyer up at Grumpy's, Mike Shaw, who did a great job at Shaw's Barn Grill, where I played for 10 years every Thursday with the great Wee Willie Walker and occasionally with Sonny Earl. Now, Northeast Minneapolis is known as the Arts and Entertainment District. You've got to feel some pride in being part of that.
Absolutely, yeah. That's kind of like when I bought Mayflax, and I would travel around. You know, Andy Zerbe, who owns Zerbe's, which Pat Dwyer bought from, and Jimmy, who owned Jimmy's. Well, these guys would never go in each other's bar, you know, because it was so hyper competitive. You know, and it's kind of like I'd go in every one. I said, our competition isn't with us. Our competition is with downtown. We want to bring people to Northeast and let them go up and down 4th Avenue, 4th Street, and enjoy the culture we have here. And we did the phase in historic Northeast Minneapolis, and so that's kind of come on. And then eventually, as Uptown had its issues, more and more that kind of arts and came this direction, and they went into warehouses, and it's kind of started what Northeast is today a little bit. And I think we were part of that movement, or we weren't all of that movement, but definitely part of that is in some of those bands. You know, we get some bands that were playing at Lee's Liquor Lounge and other places like that to kind of come into Northeast and bring people with them. And it was really a great time. Northeast is still a fun place to be, and still always will be home.
We've got Jeff Moritko on for the whole show tonight. Big show next weekend, August 16th and 17th at Moe's American Grill in Mounds View. And the website to find out more is just moesamericangrill.com. Saturday, Sherwin and Pam Linton in the afternoon for a free show, and then GB Layton Trio Saturday night. Sunday, a big show. It's only 10 smackers. Opening up will be the Front Porch Swing and Liquor Bids, and then the 50th anniversary of my band, and we're so excited to play together again in the electric format, Cats Under the Stars. We're going to listen to a little bit of Sherwin Linton with his wife Pam do a live version of their big hit, Sherwin's big hit, Cotton King, and then be back with Jeff for the rest of the night on the Wall of Power Radio Hour.
They call me lucky little rich dog, got everything, he's the son of a cotton king. In a mansion down in Georgia, late one Sunday morn, my papa started passing out 4-inch cigars, I had just been born. From that day on, he started giving me everything. The neighbors used to laugh and call me Silver Spoon. Papa was a cotton king. Papa was a cotton king. They call me lucky little rich dog, got everything. He's the son of a cotton king. Well, he grew all the cotton in the county. she had all the money too. I used to sleep on big silk sheets. I wore patent leather shoes. Some of my friends were poor folks. They didn't have a thing. Sometimes it made me feel kind of bad. Papa was a cotton king. Papa was a cotton king.
Wall of Power Radio Hour.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour for the last set. This is your host, Paul Metz, my guest for the whole show, my good friend, Jeff Maritko. Jeff, you become kind of, you started at Maislax, but now you're kind of a restaurateur. Tell us about the Moe's American Grill, where the big show is next weekend. But let's talk about the Char House, and then I believe you run one other place. So give us the rundown of your Moe's American Restaurant Group.
Yeah, appreciate that, Paul. Yeah, when we sold Maislax, we bought it was a Jake City Grill, and we turned it into Moe's, and then ultimately Moe's American Grill, and next May will be 20 years at that location. Standard fare, casual American, and we ran it as such till about 4 years ago. We got approached by Fogarty Arena to do the food and beverage inside of that arena, where there's 2 hockey rinks and 6 curling ice sheets. And so we took over that about 4 years ago, like I said, and we do Moe's at the Ice House there. And so we take kind of our favorite Moe's items and have it on the menu there. And we're event-based there and do a lot of catering and items for the curlers and obviously the hockey rink as well. And then in 2023, we got called to look at an old Axel's location down in Chanhassen, right across the street from the Chanhassen Dinner Theater. So we went in there and ran it under a management contract for a year, closed last July and August, remodeled, opened up as Moe's Char House, kind of upscale casual, where you can still get a cheeseburger and a turkey melt and walleye sandwich, but you also get a good steak and seafood if you want to. And so we've been there. We'll be 1 year as Moe's Char House here at the end of August. And that's been an exciting venture, a little bit different in the menu mix at that place, and that's kind of fun. It's I really enjoy serving people, and when they leave and they're happy and they've had a good meal. That's where brings great joy to me and my wife Rosie and our family, really, because they're all involved. And so we started bringing a little music down there too, to get people introduced to some of the people we've known over the years, and people have been kind enough to come down there and play too, either on our patio or in our bar or lounge area.
Well, speaking of music, you're kind of centrally located between the headquarters of AM 950 and Princess Paisley Park. And I believe, because I was I visited you and had a great a beer and a great burger the last time I was in town a few months ago, that Prince used to come to the Char House, and there's a little booth there. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so back in the day when they first opened, they put this closed-in booth, and back then they called it the Godfather's booth, it closed with the curtains and whatnot. But when Prince was at Paisley Park, he would sneak in through the kitchen door and then right into that booth. Loved his privacy. And then he'd have his entourage in there. And if it was a bigger entourage, we'd have him in what they call the Chan room. So we still have that Prince booth to this day. And I'm telling you, people from all over the world that come and see Paisley Park, they make a reservation to come and have lunch or dinner in there, and it's something I was kind of going to get rid of because I could use the valuable space. And then, boy, everyone in the world that heard that said, "No, you got to leave it. You got to leave it." And I'm sure glad I did, because people love coming there. They love sitting in there. They can feel the vibe of, when he used to sneak in there and with his entourage and close the curtain, and God only knows what was going on then, but. Yeah, he used to frequent there because he could have his privacy. He was a pretty private person.
What is the website for the Char House, Jeff?
Moes, MOES, charhouse.com.
Very cool. Now, we only got about 4 minutes left, but I've always been amazed your work ethic. You raised, you've got 2 lovely sons, 2 lovely daughters. You've got a lovely wife, and you're running all these restaurants and music in. But you had a little bout with cancer. Tell us about that and how you dealt with everything you were working on, and still dealing with getting healthy from cancer. And I got to add, and you were still coaching football.
Yeah. It's well, a friend of mine who a coaching friend, had prostate cancer, and I was 49 at the time. He said, "You got to go get your PSA test. It's easy. It's a blood test. I'll tell you if you're good or bad." And so I go in and get my blood test in March of 2011, and everything comes out good in the PSA. And my doctor's like, "Well, 49 next year, you got to do a colonoscopy." And I said, "Can I do it, now?" And he said, "Well, if your insurance will cover it, go for it." So we go in there and have a colonoscopy, and they find some polyps, and a couple of them had already gone through my colon, and they were cancerous, and they got into the lymph nodes, and I was deemed stage 3B colon cancer, and so I immediately had colon surgery. They took out 2 feet of my colon and sewed things back together again. I was lucky that they could do that, because oftentimes they can't. They don't have enough good things to be able to sew back together. And I went under chemo. I had 12 rounds of chemo, and then going on my 2 year of that situation and going my checkup, they find a spot on my liver, and that was 2013. At that point, my friends were like, "You got to get a second opinion," and we went down to Mayo. Mayo found another spot on my liver.
Wow.
So it metastasized to my liver, and I was given 10% chance to live, but I was fortunate I could get surgery. And a lot of people that when it metastasized to the liver, they can't have surgery. And so I had liver surgery where they took out both those spots, cut off the bottom third of your liver because it grows back, and then I had another 12 rounds of chemo.
Wow.
And so that was 2013. 2014, I went down to the Mayo Clinic every 6 months until I could go to every 4 months, and it was 6 months, then it was a year. And God was on my side. I was lucky they could give me the hardest treatment that I needed to have. And in February of 2022, in my checkup, the doctor came in and had tears in his eyes, and was like, I don't get to give this message very often, but we're going to deem you cured. We see no evidence of disease for 10 years, and so we're going to deem you cured, and so that was it, and I go now. I get a colonoscopy every 5 years just to make sure, and everything, knock on wood's been clean, and that's been my battle. But yeah, you mentioned coaching football. Part of the therapy for me, and people give me credit for this, but really it was selfish. I wanted to be around that young energy,
Yeah.
And so I would go to those football practices, and I had the chemo, on my belt, and it would just, because it was time released, and it would go over 48 hours. It would just go through your system. And so I'd go out there, and I'd have an umbrella to keep the shade off you and sit when I needed. But, I went every day. I didn't miss any time, and did what I could to be part of that equation. And, when you had bad days, you had bad days, and you had good days, you had good days. But being around those young kids and being around that team and still coaching and teaching, that took my mind off of worrying about living or dying. And you could just kind of focus on what was next, and that helped get me through it, and ultimately get me out the other side, which I'm incredibly grateful for.
Well, that's a great story, and you're a tough Pollock to start with. You've been dealing with running a bar and dealing with musicians for years, so I'm sure that toughened you up. I will look forward to seeing my guests next weekend. at Moe's American Grill in Mounds View. Big show on Saturday with GB Layton Trio, Pam and Sherwin Linton. The big show on Sunday, the Front Porch Swinging Liquor Pigs, the 50th anniversary of Cats Under the Stars. We're going to be listening to a little bit of Cats Under the Stars. They played on my first record. We're going to listen to Robots on Death Row. And Jeff, I look forward to seeing you next weekend. And this weekend, have a great weekend.
Hey, Paul, I appreciate it. Appreciate the time. Love you, brother. You know that. And we are super excited for next weekend.
You don't like my train, baby, don't have to drive my track. Tell your switchblade monkey, he don't have to ride your back. Tell your half-moon waitress it's a high wire show. You drop a lover just like dominoes. Your barbed wire blanket is the ready to go. Just like a robot on death row. Just like a robot on death row. Shoot dog train the doctors who put the bell on you. Airmen and helicopters, you said they fell on you. Your mechanical street queen, you can feel his whistle blow. Ain't no difference, mama, than you're plugged in Romeo. You're the first to ask questions, but the last one to know. Just like a robot on death row. Just like a robot on death row.
Thanks for listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. The show was produced by Paul Metza, engineered by Brett Johnson. We'd like to thank our guest, Jeff Maritko. Catch us next weekend at Moe's American Grill with the 50th anniversary of Cats Under the Stars, August 17th. Moe's American Grill, 2400 Mounds View Boulevard. Like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy.
High and the mighty will fall. There will be